So today, the USDA cuts over $1 billion in funding for schools' local food purchases. The U.S. Agriculture Department has cut two federal programs that spent over $1 billion annually to help schools and food banks buy food from local farms and ranches, according to a school group and a political report on Monday. The School Nutrition Association, which represents cafeteria workers and directors nationwide, said in a press conference release that the USDA cut the $660 million local food and schools program for 2025. Political, citing a spokesperson for the USDA, reported that the department also cut the local food purchase assistance cooperative agreement program, which would have funded about $500 million this year to support food banks. The USDA did not immediately respond to a request for comments on the cuts. Ending the programs is part of an aggressive effort by Donald Trump, his administration, to sharply shrink the federal government and how much money it spends. The move comes as Trump has imposed new tariffs on goods from Canada, Mexico, and China, sparking trade wars with the biggest buyers of U.S. farm products. Farmers and food organizations across the U.S. are cutting staff and halting investments as the USDA freezes other grants and programs. Farmers and agricultural support groups have told Reuters. And this is what we were referring to a little bit earlier, that we know a lot of farmers voted for Donald Trump, and a lot of them had taken subsidies from the government last year that they are no longer going to get this year. And those subsidies they were using and counting on to pay their employees and to use this to grow and to do what they do as farmers. And now they are no longer going to have that money. And they're going to have to shut down. They're going to lose their businesses. And we've heard farmers talk about this and how concerned they are about this, and how some people have regretted their vote and saying, this is not what I voted for. If I'd known that this was going to happen, I never would have done this. But Trump's spokesperson, the person who is handling this particular cut, was on Fox News. And this is, again, what she had to say about the cut, and we'll play this clip and then we'll talk about it.
Here, right up your alley, USDA cancels $1 billion in local food purchasing for schools and food banks. How do you justify that?
Well, listen, I think it's really important, and of course the left is doing what the left does.
They're saying blaming the left.
These were COVID-era programs. These were additional funds, and then under Biden, more and more and more and more money. So just yesterday, we're canceling more contracts on food justice for trans people in New York.
Again, they're going to say something is involved with trans people on every single thing they cut, because they know this is a buzzword that the American people are going to use to justify their stupidity behind repeating these ridiculous talking points. There is absolutely no proof or evidence that this has anything to do with transgender people. And even if it did, first of all, tell me exactly what you're talking about and why this is something that we need to cut $1 billion for.
In San Francisco, obviously that's different than the food programs in the schools, but it is really important. We spend billions and billions and billions of dollars on nutrition programs for lower income and socioeconomically disadvantaged kids. But the Biden administration used that to often push money out, taxpayer dollars out, that is not reaching its intended target. So that new program that came in the last few years, again, trying to spend more and more money, we're pulling that back. As we have always said, if we are making mistakes, we will own those mistakes and we will reconfigure. But right now, from what we are viewing, that program was non-essential, that it was a new program, and that it was an effort by the left to continue spending taxpayer dollars that were not necessary.
I'm going back.
Reaching its intended target. So that
I want you to listen again to what she says here about, again, this is what we'll do, but
new
listen.
Program that came in the last few years, again, trying to spend more and more money, we're pulling that back. As we have
right here.
always said, if we are making mistakes, we will own those mistakes and we will reconfigure. But right now, from what we are viewing, that program was non-essential, that it was a new program, and that it was an effort by the left to continue spending taxpayer dollars that were not necessary.
That's very important to pay attention to, guys, because this is what they're going to do throughout the entire presidency. She just said that, again, we're going to point out mistakes when we make mistakes. But right now, what we're seeing is this, what I just talked about. And then somebody's going to dig into this a little bit further, and they're going to question this. And now they can fall back on the, see, we're going to, whenever we make mistakes, we're going to admit to our mistakes. So they're going to set up all the bullshit every time they speak by saying, if we make a mistake, we will clearly, she wasn't even believing what she was saying. You can clearly tell she wasn't believing what she was saying, but she knew the words, the buzzwords that she was told to use to justify this to the brain dead flying monkeys or the American people who want to believe every single word that comes out of these people's mouth. So they continue to justify ripping me and you and all of us off by using these buzzwords and getting a group of people to back them up because of the lies they literally tell them to their faces. This is tactics that they have used and are 100% going to be using throughout their entire administration. And at some point, how you are as a grown adult, don't look at yourself in the mirror and go, you know what? Kind of don't like being lied to all the time. I don't like being treated like I'm a fucking child. And it is a little concerning that every time they say something, they have to walk it back a little bit. And it makes me feel like a moron at some point. So these are things that they're going to be saying over and over and over again. So that way it, again, suckers people into justifying their talking points and going around and saying, yeah, Donald Trump, this is why I voted for him, because he is making sure that he's getting rid of school money that's going to trans something. And they don't even know what it was, because I don't even remember what the fuck she said. Something about trans stuff. This is why we're cutting $1 billion in school programs, because, yeah, trans something. Okay, can you tell us exactly what that is? Not on this show, because the person that asked me this question would never think about asking me a follow-up question like that. So no, of course I'm not going to tell you on this show, but I know at some point some responsible reporter is going to ask either me or Elon this question, and then we're just going to fall back and say, well, we make mistakes from time to time, so just hang in there with us. But quite frankly, I'm already tired of the mistakes that this administration has made over and over and over again. And that includes lying about the so-called fraud and cuts that they have made in their so-called Doge findings. I am tired of them lying about where the money goes, and I'm tired of them getting rid of very important positions. And then when they find out that, oh wait, these people actually watch over our nuclear stockpile and we just fired them, well, shit, that I guess was not a good idea. Please, will you come back? I apologize for firing you. This is the most inept, irresponsible administration in the history of America. And folks, we are only 2 months into it. 2 months into this administration. And it is a laughing stock. It is a joke. And this is not going to turn out well for this country if we continue to allow and vote in these idiots because they say buzzwords that trick you into thinking that this is important to you. It's not important to you. What's important to you is what's about to happen to you. Wake the fuck up. It's time. It's time for you to say, you know what? You don't even have to say I was wrong. Just admit that they lied to you. If you admit they lied to you, that's all I'm asking. And then maybe you could start to open up your brain a little bit and realize they fucked us. They fucked us hard. And you know what? Quite frankly, I'm tired of hearing about the millions of criminals that Joe Biden let into our country. Because quite frankly, I haven't really seen it. I don't know anybody that has seen it. I brought this point up before. We all know somebody that passed away from the pandemic. That was rampant in this country. That was something that happened on such a large scale that we all can relate to it and say, this is what we need to do to combat it. So more people aren't dying from this pandemic. If that same thing was happening on the scale that Donald Trump makes you think that immigrants are coming in here and causing all kinds of crimes and murders and rape, wouldn't we all know somebody? Wouldn't we know somebody that it happened to? Wouldn't it happen to us if it was happening on this large of a scale? Wouldn't we know? Wouldn't all of us know somebody where a trans boy was playing in girls' sports and rendered their daughters worthless anymore in sports because they injured them so badly? Wouldn't we all know somebody, or wouldn't it have happened to us if it happened on the scale that they want you to believe it happened? You would think. But all this is happening on the same scale as people dying from the vaccine. That's the same thing. They have more people believing that the trans thing, the immigrant thing, and people dying from the vaccine happen on a way larger scale than people actually who passed away from the pandemic. This is just, it's so stupid.